Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go.
It's easy to sound good on the harmonica as long as you just play random notes. Okay, oh, isn't this neat? It's a charm bracelet. It has a whole lot of charms.
It's 32 charms on there.
32 different ones, and I'm guessing it's a combination of sterling and non-sterling. Did you collect this, or is this something you found?
The whole charm bracelets. And I got this at a estate sale.
Very good. And do you mind me asking what you gave for it?
I'm not sure.
You're not
This
sure?
has been a few years ago.
Okay, good. Well, then it couldn't have been a whole lot if you don't remember, so that's good news too. You have this one, which is a cowbell. Anything that's mechanical is a little bit more. With charm bracelets, there's really two values. Well, there's three, depending. If it turned out to be, gold, then there's metal value. And then beyond that, you have the bracelet with the charms, and then what if we sold the charms individually? It's worth more if you break it up and sell them individually, but it just takes a whole long time to sell all of them. Yeah, because individually these might sell for, $10 or $12 a piece. And if you have 32 of them, well, you're looking at $450 or $500 if you were willing to part them out over a very long period of time. Now, a lot of these are not sterling, so they might only be $5 or $6. So then your value is more like $250, $300. As a piece of jewelry, I would say it's more likely to price somewhere around $150 to $175 would be as a charm bracelet. And that seems realistic. You have a lot of fun charms. There's not a lot of mechanical ones. There's not a lot that are sterling. But they always, charm bracelets are so great because they tell stories. And you do have a few unusual ones. This little box opens. It's a great set. It looks like 1950s to me from the design, or maybe a little earlier.
Thanks, George. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's do another piece of jewelry, and then we'll have you folks come next. And whose piece of jewelry is this? Oh, cool. Oh, these are great.
Here's my dilemma.
Okay.
First of all, I don't know if it's gold.
Okay.
And I guess we need to determine that first. And I don't know if it's better to hold on to these pieces, even if it was gold. But let's find out first what it is.
Okay. Appears to be brass to me. And the way that I look, if you don't have a gold tester, the thing you look for is tarnish, because gold isn't supposed to, because that's part of its quality. And there is tarnish on the back right here.
Okay.
So this appears to be brass, but this is a nice piece. This is a Victorian slide bracelet. And so this actually is going to date. It's got nice little seed pearls. It's got a little carved cameo in the center of it. This is going to date to probably around, I would think 1885 to 1895. It's a nice old piece. Yeah, it's a really beautiful old piece. And it's got the seed pearls. Nothing is missing. Victorian jewelry is actually becoming of a lot more interest. It's become a lot more collectible again the last few years. Now this one, and I do not have a gold tester with me, but I'm going to hold this up so that folks can see, and let me hold it up for the folks at home to see as well.
I think this is the one that is in question that Jill thought might be gold.
No, they actually tested it. It is gold.
I was going to say it should be tested, and I think it just looks gold to me. Do they know what carat it tested?
It was a high carat. I can't remember.
Probably 18. Yeah. See, in Victorian jewelry, nowadays we basically think of there's 14 karat gold, there's 18 karat gold, there's 10 karat gold. Well, back then they would do any sort of, it could be any number. It could be 12 karat, it could be 8, it could be 17. I mean, it was just whatever purity they had.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What is, and this is like jewelry for dummies.
That's okay.
10 karat gold is the least. It goes.
Yeah, it goes up in numbers. So 10 karat is 10 karat means it is 37.5% pure.
Oh, okay.
14 karat means that it is 58.5% pure, and 18 karat is 75% pure. Because they almost always mix with an alloy, partly because of the expense and partly because gold is hard to fashion if it doesn't have other metal in it that's a little easier. It's another very, very nice Victorian piece. And now the chain, I'm not sure. The parts that we know are gold are this locket and this part of the slide chain. The chain itself may or may not be. You might actually have to test the pieces individually, but as far as gold value, the chain is the least of it, so it doesn't affect it all that much. But the fact that this is high carat gold, the cameo is well done. It's got a lot of relief. Again, this is going to be sometime around 1890. I would say that, you know, you surely have at least a quarter to a third of an ounce of gold, and then you have the fact that it's got the nice work, and Victorian jewelry is popular again. So I think conservatively we could say 650 to 850 is a possible number on it. Yeah, because if it's 18 karat gold and it's, you know, even though this is hollow, a third of an ounce of 18 karat is still going to be several $100s just by itself, and then you have this lovely piece of jewelry out of it.
So are you talking about keeping the way it is? I mean, some people say melt it down.
I would sell it the way it is because Victorian jewelry is popular right now. My attitude about scrapping where gold and silver are concerned is if it's really new, if it's broken, if it's really damaged, go ahead and sell it for scrap metal. But if it's a complete intact piece of jewelry, it's worth more alive than dead.
Okay.
There is a premium for the fact that, you know, they're going to pay the scrap value plus for the fact that it's a neat piece.
Yes, yes.
So.
Okay, thanks, George.
Oh, you're so welcome. Come on up. Hello. This is a really lovely piece of glass. And what can you tell me about it and how you got it?
Friends gave it to me and they said they thought it was Fenton.
Okay.
But I can't find a Fenton mark on it, but of course the old Fenton wasn't marked. So.
Right, the old Fenton wasn't marked, and there was a period about the late 60s, they did a line called Old Virginia that was essentially black amethyst as carnival glass. And they did other lines as well. So you've got the Narcissus face. I would say that based on what I'm seeing for other black carnival from this line, from this era, I would think you might be in the realm of $200 to $250, and possibly a little bit more, particularly right here. Because of where we are. The only thing that would make it more than that is if we were to find out that it was a very, very limited line, or that it wasn't in the line, that they produced it as a sample and then they didn't end up including it in the line. And that, to be honest with you, I think you'd probably have to go to the National Museum or the National Fenton Finders, which you're a member
and
of.
I've looked, and
they don't show it either.
Either it's so old or it's so current. Of course, the books didn't have everything in it.
No, they don't. I wrote a collector's reference book, and when I said, how many pictures do I get? They said 450, and I took 700 pictures, and they picked 450 of them. So you don't get to put everything in your book, even if you want to.
Because that's a picture of my Elizabeth pattern.
Oh,
they
that's
made
wonderful.
that, I think, for 3 years back in the 30s.
Back in the 30s, yeah. They didn't do the dinnerware sets for very long, and
Well,
they
they called that a lunch, a brunch, or breakfast set. So,
that is beautiful.
yeah. And I bought that off of Richard and Ruby Stats. There are a couple here that helped start the Fenton Club. And her name was Ruby, so when they went across the United States,
They would look for ruby glass.
I think about $450.
Oh, I think you got a very good buy. You don't really see Elizabeth very often. The red is popular, and I honestly think that might be. I think for insurance purposes, I would put 3 times that on it, because if you were to try to replace that, the ruby comes up very seldomly.
Very hard to,
and it would take you a long time, and you would pay for it.
especially it's got the
all those
the
serving
bottom
creases.
part is sculptured where some of them aren't.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Those variants
And
definitely add
Ruby
to the
on
value.
Ruby, they said was really not, usually it was black and then ruby or another color.
It was usually a cut. Yeah, they like to do color combinations at that time, and they also, ruby cost more when it was new, and that was in an era when people didn't have a lot of money to spend necessarily.
That's true. Yeah.
Even if they had money, they were being a little more conservative with it.
I have that vase.
Do you?
Isn't it lovely?
Well, here we go. Tell us
You
a little
have
more
something?
since
I do. I have
you
that
have
vase.
this exact one. Okay, tell us about it. Tell us a little more.
I don't know.
Because it's not marked. Or I couldn't find it in the decoration either. Sometimes they marked it up
Yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
it's marked on the side of the
Yeah.
piece and not where you would expect.
Mine is definitely Fenton, and it's in the window of my shop. It's beautiful like this. I don't know what did you say for a value on it?
Oh, around 275.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was gonna say, mine personally, I would not sell it for less than $300.
Now,
It
I'm
is a
destroying her
treasure.
because I think it'd make a nice lamp.
Yeah.
But you have to drill. Now, if you
I
do the
was
top
not-
and then take the electric cord down the outside.
Sometimes you can
Maybe
put things in it without drilling it to make
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Because I will say, just from the years of selling things with Fenton and other glass, when you drill things and make them into lamps, it really knocks the value down on the original piece.
Yeah.
Hello.
This one's different from that one. Okay.
Oh, I like this though. How did you get this piece?
We bought that at an estate auction. Didn't get very much for it, $15, $20.
15 or
But it was
20.
just different from the things that we normally buy.
Yes.
And it was Italy, the birds and the flowers. So, and the handles were a little slight.
So this
Or
is
unique.
They really are. I like all of the detail. The condition's really good on this too. This is a 20th century piece of, essentially it's Italian, it's faience, the glaze, and the hand painting is really well done. And what's nice is that it's got all this detail and not a bunch of chips. Usually the Italian stuff, as neat as it looked, chipped really easily along the edges. And so the fact that this one is so clean makes it a little more desirable than they would be otherwise. It's all hand painted and the detail is really good. And we got a lot of this ware in the 1960s and 70s. Italy was having a lot of trouble then. They had the Red Brigade and internal terrorism, and the value of the lira plummeted, and all of a sudden they were desperate to sell stuff to the United States. And that's why there's so much great Italian glass and ceramic from the 60s and 70s that ended up here.
Mm-hmm.
And so this would have been of that era. I think it's really pretty and well done. I don't see anything that helps us identify a maker that with these pieces, at least at this point, there's not a lot of scholarship on these, and I don't think there's any reason to think that would affect the value now. That may change as people get more interested in this. And you said you paid $15 for it?
15 or 20.
Or 20, yeah. I think retail on this probably 75 to 95 these days.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well, tell me how you got this.
I found it in my closet.
Found it in my closet counts. When you've been a collector a while, it's like having things new again, isn't
It
it?
came, I'm sure, back from my father's side. My father was living, he'd be 113. So I don't
Wow.
know. But I know that I'm missing the one thing on it.
It is missing one of the little horns, but this is a trumpet call. This is by Hohner. Hohner was the most famous and most well-known of the various companies that made harmonicas and that type of instrument, and then they're still in business. And if you don't mind, I'll give it, it's a little as is, but I think it'll play a little. It's easy to sound good on the harmonica as long as you just play random notes. Not really, but it's interesting. He's also got his Order of Foresters information in here, so it's just nice. It's got a lot of family memories, and it's got a little receipt in here that says that, oh, this is for something else, 75 cents due for the telephone, so... January 6, 1900, so it's a really neat piece. We don't see a lot of these. Condition does matter on these. A recent one with the box but in better condition sold for $200, which is about what I expected. Yours, because it's as is probably more in the $100 to $125 range. I realize the value is mostly sentimental for family anyway, but that is a very fun piece and something we don't see very often. Let's see what you brought.
I have some Quimper glass.
Oh, yes.
Piece, I believe it's a 4-piece set. That's what I was told, whether it is or not.
Yes, no, this looks like it all matches and or is similar. They Quimper was a really, really good maker of earthenware ceramics, and they're very well known for this yellowware with the brightly painted peasants. And oh, you've got actually quite a few pieces. Looks like
I
you've
actually
got
have more, but this is what they told me all went together.
all went together, right? And you'll be able to tell basically by your bordering will be how you know which goes together and which doesn't, because they did various borders. You might see this same sort of character in the middle, but then the border may be different. It's an earthenware, and they did tend to chip around the edges some. The thickness of this one seems to be a little different, and you notice the signatures are different on every time. So they all match. And they were collected and put together as a set. I don't know that they actually came as a set originally.
Yeah.
I believe these three with the larger larger signature, I believe, are newer, and these two are older. The values have come down on this some because it's not as understood by newer generations, but it's got such a folk art style to it that I think it's going to catch on again. I would say now you're probably looking at a value around $100 for the set. Aw, isn't that beautiful? How did you get it, and what do you know about it?
My mother gave it to me for Christmas. She had a pin to a blazer that she bought for me.
Aw.
And it was really, I always thought it was pretty.
Aw, that's really neat, and what a nice way to present it. And that actually brings up an interesting thing. You are going through estate sales, and for all of you folks who might be watching elsewhere, look through the clothes if you like costume jewelry, because a lot of times women would put a pin on and they really liked it with that piece and they would just leave it there. Some of the best costume jewelry I've found came from the closet rather than the jewelry box. This piece has a maker's mark on it, and I believe it's Weiss, but I'm going to take a look and make sure. Yes, it is Weiss. Weiss was very big in, well, they were big in the 50s and 60s particularly, and especially in the 60s, so much so that Diella and Lister, who did Juliana jewelry, made a lot of stuff for them because they couldn't keep up with their orders. That was actually pretty common with costume jewelry, is that companies would make for each other. If they didn't have a lot of orders, then someone else would send them some, and they all kind of kept each other going. Very nice crystals, Austrian crystal in this. It's got so much color to it, to the crystal, which helps because you know, it's round, which is not as sought after as shapes, and it's clear, which is not as sought after as color, other things being equal. We sell these types of pins right before formal wear.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and that's actually when they were often done. This would usually be part of a holiday line for that reason. So 1960s, I would say that the value on this piece probably in the $40 range.
More than I thought.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that nice? Tell me a little about this piece and what you know about it.
Actually, I know nothing about it. It came from Heidi's auction.
Really?
Yes. And I don't normally do that. I mean, I'm a Fenton collector, but
Right.
it was pretty. I like the color. And
Oh, it's beautiful, and it's Victorian, and it's a very nice peach blow, and it's a very deep peach blow, so I'm actually not thinking, I mean, it's actually almost more of a Rubina, really, I would say, than peach blow. It could be Mount Washington.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm leaning towards Mount Washington as the
Okay.
maker of this. Now, there were lots of glass companies, and a lot of them did this sort of thing, but they really did a lot of peach blow and a fair amount of Rubina, and the finish on the bottom seems right. So that would be my best educated guess without doing more research. The enameling, the decoration is really, really nice on this. And of course, originally it would have been part of a bigger set.
Right.
It's a nice silver-plated mount here.
Now, is it better to leave it alone with the finish that's there, or should it be clean?
I think it really depends on your taste, to be honest.
Okay.
Some people like the
I sorta
dark
like that.
patina, and I do too, especially with this piece of glass. If it were me, I would leave it alone.
Okay.
I also hate to polish, so I'm biased. On the other hand, if you wanted it to be shiny bright, that's how it was originally, you wouldn't be hurting anything to polish it. You wouldn't be doing anything wrong. So it's just up to you. Conservatively, $75 to $95, I would think.
Good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, now you have to find the person who really understands
Yeah.
and collects Victorian glass, and there aren't as many these days. But I do see we're starting to see a younger generation get interested in Victorian because like my 32-year-old niece told me when she bought a balloon back chair a few months ago, and I said, "Your house is full of IKEA," and she said, "Yes, I'm sick of it. Everything is so plain. I've grown up with nothing but modernism. I want something fancy. And I said, send me pictures of what you like. And everything she sent was Victorian.
Oh, that's funny.
And I thought, I think
Very
we have a new
interesting.
generation.
Yes. Well, thank you so much.
It's fun for me too. I'm so glad to be here doing this. This is great.
Have at it.
How did you get this and what do you know about it?
Actually, I bought that off of eBay.
Mm-hmm.
Very late at night when I have insomnia is actually when I do shop.
Yes.
And I find lots of deals.
Oh, I bet, because late at night, nobody in the U.S. is on usually.
And it was like a buy it now. And I bought it, and then I prayed I was going to get it in one piece.
Yeah.
But I had been looking for one, and I guess I've owned that for about 13 years.
Wow.
I believe it's Overshot, and I
Yes.
do and I have some Overshot, and I purchased a piece of cranberry Overshot at the antique store across the street. First day here. I know it's fairly old, and I believe it might be crackle underneath too.
Yes, it's definitely overshot, and it gives it the crackle effect. It does seem like there's some either striation or bubbling in the glass as well, so it looks like crackle on both sides, but I think it's just because of the way that the composition of the glass itself. Did they tell you anything about country of origin on this particular piece?
No, it's in this. You can find it in this Stan, the late Stan Whiteman, Crackle Glass Around the World. He has several, and he has a picture of that, and it's in a museum. And
Interesting.
I think it's kind of Victorian. It's early.
It looks to me to be most of this is late Victorian. This piece does seem to be European to me, the way that it's made, the way the rondelles are applied, but also the polish on the bottom, the way that that's done. Do you mind me asking what you gave for it late night on eBay?
$80.
$80.
I've been seeing other pieces around 2, maybe 3.
Yes, I was going to say, I would think for
more.
Sometimes more, exactly. Yeah, Overshot is something we just don't see a whole lot anymore. It seems like most of it went in collections years ago. This braided rope, this interlaced handle here is really quite a lot of work to make. I'm of the opinion that this might be closer to the 225 value that you thought it was when you bought it. So there's a tip for everyone. Stay up late and shop then.
Well, have fun, George.
Oh, this is great. Okay, so this is a signed baseball, but read what it says. It actually is signed by a professional baseball player, but this is a little different than the usual professional baseball player because this one is Pickles, who was Dolores Lee Dries. She played for the Rockford Peaches. It was part of the women's league that existed in the Second World War and up until the early 1950s. And of course, a league of their own was about this phenomenon. Some of the women's teams were drawing almost as well as the professional teams, and a lot of the black baseball teams started to draw really well because the regular teams were gone. And so all of a sudden people were looking for this sort of entertainment. And so they started giving people who hadn't been part of baseball before started to have a chance to make a name for themselves. And she was fairly famous amongst the group.
Her name is Dolores Lee, and her married name is Dries.
Dries is her married name, yes.
They would often do exhibition games. They would play before the men, and they would have the women come out and do different things. And her big thing is she could throw that two baseballs simultaneously to 2 batters, and the men and that was her thing.
That's pretty cool.
She's still alive. She's in Arizona, and also she was the first female policewoman in New Jersey.
That's fantastic for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
And what a great story. Yeah, these women were really intrepid, and they there is definitely a market. Now, most of these were signed in the 1990s, like this one was about the
86, I think.
Yep. Yep, exactly. And because the movie came out and suddenly they were all famous and they finally got their due. I recently sold a poster signed by various of the Women League players, and it went for $300. And I would think that that would be conservatively a starting price for this. It could certainly go for more, and I think in the future they will, because as more women are involved in sports and more women are becoming sports fans because of it, they're going to look back to this as being a really seminal moment in terms of women's sports.
It was 50% off.
Oh, fantastic.
So I paid like $11.
$11, wow.
So they keep her hidden in the dark.
That's probably wise because ink does fade.
In the dark.
Yeah, ink does fade, and as long as it's not too hot and stuffy in there that there could be some other thing to happen to it, I would say that's the place to put it.
I kind of knew what it was.
Uh-huh.
And it was when I kind of was collecting Hull, and I recognized it from my book. I kept looking at it, and I'm like, that's old. I like it.
A lot of people would not recognize this as Hull pottery, but Hull pottery in the very early days, first of all, they did more utility ware just like everybody did. And secondly, this one has the H in the circle on the bottom. And so that gives us our clue right away that this is a Hull piece and probably from the 1920s. It's a salt box because they did do a lot of utility ware and stuff for kitchens at that time. It wasn't all just pots for, pottery's sake. They got more into the artware later. And you said this was another late night find, and because they didn't know what it was, may I ask what you got it for?
Oh gosh, I got it for like $10.
$10, wow. Yeah, that's fantastic.
And I might even got free shipping.
Oh, wow. That's great.
I've had that a long time.
It's a really neat piece, and you just don't see a lot of this sort of thing from them. Salt boxes are collectible in their own right. Hull is not as popular as it was, but I feel like it's going to make a comeback because a lot of it's pink, and we've got a lot of gray interiors, and pink goes with gray, and that's when they got really popular last time, was in the 80s. And once that happens, then people start getting interested in the other things they made. So down the road, this will be worth more, but today I'd say probably $50, $60. The reason I think it is original is because it's got this scoring around it to make it a little bit Art Deco. It does have evidence of wear and use on the top. It's lighter on the inside, so oxygen has gotten to the outside but not the inside, which means they didn't just take a piece of wood and make it yesterday. So I do think it's actually original to the piece. Isn't that pretty? This is very early crackle glass, and what can you tell me about this?
That I liked it, and I bought it late at night, and I normally can't afford anything like that, and I thought it was Moser.
Oh, Moser?
Moser.
Well, there's something we can look at that will tell us real quickly if it's Moser or not. Moser was one of the reasons, because Moser was good quality glass, one of the things they did to make sure that the edge wouldn't chip, they always beveled it across the top and then up the side and down the side at an angle. So you're going to see 3 bevels on a Moser piece. So let's see if we see that. Okay, I see the one on the outside. I see the one on the top. I don't see one on the inside. So my guess is probably not Moser, but probably Bohemian, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
And it's a very pretty piece, and you said you got it in the middle of the night on one of your...
that came off. That was a sleeper.
I think that, for the 20 you gave for it, I honestly think it's worth about 45 to 50. This is a neat little Overshot piece, this little nut cup here, or salt dip, actually. I just saw it's got the spoon, so it is a salt dip. I think you're probably, again, $45 to $50 would be where I would think it would start in a store, and it might be more if you got someone who really understood Overshot glass. You're one of a few people I know currently collecting it. A lot of it went into collections back in the 80s, so I think a lot of new collectors aren't aware of it. Okay, so this one's salt, and then what would you put in there? It's an egg coddler, yes. So you have, you do your poached egg, and then you take it out and you lift it up, you put your salt on, and your egg is right there, and you can just take the top off the egg and eat it, or dip your toast in it if you're English. And then these look like Holt Howard to me.
They are.
And these are really hard to find.
And they don't show the Holt Howard on the bottom, they just have the Japan sticker. And that does, so if you see it, you might not You might pass it by.
You might pass it by
But it
and not
actually
know.
is.
So look
It
at the
is
face.
whole
Yeah, look at the
It's
face.
one of those things.
Look at the smile on the animal and the way it's painted, and study that, because if you look at Holt Howard pieces like Cozy Kitty, they
Yes.
have that exact same face, and that's how I was able to tell right away that it was Holt Howard, even though I have never actually seen a pair of these in person.
Most people haven't.
No,
That
no,
was a
this is
sleeper.
a hard one to find. And was this another late night find?
It wasn't in Holt Howard. It was like anthropomorphic or something.
Anthropomorphic salt and
Like
pepper.
that. And it was in there, and I just kind of went.
The other nice thing
Because I
is,
studied the book, and I knew what.
and you knew what you were looking at.
And
Yeah.
a lot of them you'll find they won't have these.
Right, they'll be missing the
Yeah.
bottom because they didn't know it went with it and they separated. And a lot of times
But I
they're
would
missing
still
this
buy
rubber
these, too.
cork, and these rubber corks
Yeah.
are the original.
And some of these were just made or experimental, and but the polar bear cubs, they're hard, and those are, and it's like they're on icebergs.
Yes.
It's like they're sitting on an iceberg.
Yes, they're very, very cute. If you got a serious Holt Howard collector who
I do.
understood these, I'm thinking,
Well, I am. I
yeah,
do.
well, yes, exactly. Yeah, my mom collects this stuff. She would love these. But she wouldn't pay what they're worth because they're worth some money. I think you might be
Yeah.
looking at 125 to 150 for the pair.
Yeah.
And possibly more in the right hands because they never come up. You just never see that line.
But that's all I've got.
Now tell me about this piece and how you got it.
Oh, there we go. That's an eBay late sleeper.
Another one?
Telling you.
Wow.
I had insomnia. I
It's
don't clean
paying
house.
off
I don't
for you.
clean house. I shop.
Yeah.
But I like costume jewelry. I like vintage costume jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to put that whole set together. I've got my eye on a set, several sets.
Yeah, it's a great
And
piece.
you see that a lot in gold. That's rhodium plated,
Yep.
and it was made in the 40s.
You don't see the rhodium as much, and this is an earlier piece. This is Coro, and we see a lot of the Whiting and Davis in the 60s after the movie Cleopatra comes out, but Coro caught on to this design way in advance. Coro, like most of the companies, was done in Rhode Island. Actually, one of my viewers on YouTube, one of my very first people who started following me, her parents worked there. And she said it was really interesting. They would produce for 3 seasons and then they'd have all summer off so they and the kids could go places. This is a really neat piece and a pretty desirable one. The whole set together is worth about $650 to $750.
To $750, that's what it is.
Yep, and the bracelet by itself, I would say, probably $150 to $250, depending on where you sold it.
I have a question. Would you explain rhodium?
Okay, well, rhodium, this piece is rhodium, and rhodium is actually a silver metal. It's something that gives it this nice, shiny, bright, without being chrome. And there were certain trade names, like Trifari called their rhodium pieces Trifarium, just because it made it sound like it was propriety to them. The interesting thing about rhodium, my costume jewelry repairer says rhodium is really difficult to repair, much harder than welding on other jewelry. And so if you buy rhodium jewelry, you probably want to try to find it in perfect shape, because
Yes.
if it's not, it's tough. Thank you
Okay.
so much. That was really
Thank
fun.
you.
Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community, here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.